Hi, Abigail. Welcome to the Integrative Health Coach Success Podcast.
Hi, Julia. Thanks so much for having me.
Yes, our pleasure. I'm excited to dive into your personal story and kind of some of the inspiration and wisdom that you can share with our listeners, kind of how you got started in this space and things that you've overcome. What I would love to do first is have you share with our listeners what you're currently doing with your IHP certification.
Yeah, so with my IHP certifications, I've done levels 1, 2, and mastery. I'm currently just seeing clients one-on-one. That's my main passion. And, some people do group coaching programs or guide, people through detoxes. And what I'm most passionate about is really just working one-on-one with people, specifically those that might have more severe chronic illness symptoms and are a little bit, of a trickier case to solve. And that's where my passion lies. And so that's how I'm working with clients currently.
Oh, that's wonderful. So where did that passion come from? Is this something that you've always kind of been passionate about? Was health kind of something that you were always interested in?
No, not actually. I didn't grow up, with a huge focus on health. I was involved with ballet all the way through, college. I danced professionally for a brief amount of time. And so, we focused on nutrition, but I think it was a pretty unhealthy mindset because it was mostly focused on controlling weight and looking a certain way. So I am used to, maybe eating healthier types of foods, but not in a very healthy, sustainable way, of course. But yeah, I dealt a lot with chronic illness, though, the past several years before I found, IHP and was able to learn how to, heal myself and let my body heal itself. So I think that my passion lies in helping those with more chronic symptoms, just because I know how it feels to feel hopeless. And I think that, when I first start working with clients, just being able to give them hope that there is light at the end of the tunnel, that, it doesn't end with the diagnosis or what the doctors, say the most likely outcome will be. You do have quite a bit of control over your body and your life. And I just love being able to, spread that message of hope to people.
Yes. Yeah. And sometimes I've actually had clients say to me, like, this is where I thought my health journey was going to end. But when they get to a certain point, they're like, this is actually where it began. Like, thank God for the doctors that were like, sorry, can't help you. Don't know what's wrong with you. We've done everything. Or for the doctors that said, you're always, Dr. Cabral's instance, like you're just going to this is how you're going to have to live the rest of your life. We can look at it as that's the end. But I think for so many people in our community, in the health and, health and wellness industry, that's actually where their life and health began, because they were kind of motivated to, say no more, to kind of not being in control of it.
Absolutely. I mean, I remember when I was 22 years old, a doctor told me I'd probably be in pain for the rest of my life. And obviously that, that caused quite a few months of pretty serious depression and, not so nice, intrusive thoughts. But I think that was what propelled me to really be determined to, tell myself I am going to get better eventually. And it, wasn't until several years later that I kind of found my way. But I think that initial, visit with that doctor was what really kind of lit the fire to, prove them wrong, I guess.
Yes. Yeah. So what were you doing before IHP? What was kind of your, out of college, or were you still dancing? What were you doing kind of leading up to your biggest health struggles?
Yeah. So during my senior year of college, I actually had a really bad back injury. And that, ended my dancing, of course. And I had one other herniated disc when I was 16 years old that I, recovered from pretty well. And then I had a second one. And then that just kind of spiraled into a lot of different back issues, very frequent injuries. And at the time I didn't know it, but just over a year ago, I was diagnosed with something called Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which is a genetic connective tissue disorder. So obviously looking back, I can see why I got injured so frequently and why I had, this chronic pain that didn't necessarily match up with just the disc injury. But that was kind of what, started my whole struggle with chronic pain. And, I saw so many doctors, the best of the best, specialists. And they were the ones that told me, well, sorry, but you're going to be in pain for the rest of your life and you won't be able to go to grad school, because I couldn't sit for more than 20 minutes at a time without being, in excruciating pain. So I spent most of the day laying on my back, completely bedridden, not able to do anything. I couldn't drive in the car for more than, 15, 20 minutes. I couldn't go out to eat. I mean, that limits, a lot of social activities. And I felt really isolated and just alone. And I think that was the time. And this was the summer in between my, senior year of college and when I would have started grad school. And so during that time, since the doctor said, well, you can't go to grad school. And, I'm thinking, what am I going to do with my life? I graduated, had a degree in psychology, and then I was kind of clueless. Like I just didn't know what to do. So that was the summer when I was probably at my lowest, or one of the times I was at my lowest. And I spent that summer living with my parents, pretty much on complete bed rest. And that was when I got the idea to start Willow Lane Lingerie, which was an e-commerce company that I started while, living with my parents. And I got the idea from an episode of The Office. Which is where, Michael, he takes all the women in the office to Victoria's Secret. It's very politically incorrect, but it's also funny. And I remember Pam, the receptionist, picking up a bathrobe. And she was like, oh, well, I don't need anything sexy, so I'm just going to get this bathrobe because I don't have a boyfriend. And I remember thinking, wow, that's so sad that, as women, we feel like in order to validate buying something, beautiful and sexy and pretty for ourselves to feel confident in, we feel like we have to have, a partner that would validate purchasing, such a thing. And so I ended up starting, a lingerie company with that, women's empowerment and, comfort and being able to, have fun in your body and having lingerie to be worn and not just to be taken off. And also made out of sustainable fabrics. And so I started the company kind of with that goal in mind. And that's honestly, I think that's also what kind of pulled me out of my depression. Cause I'm like, okay, am I going to lay in bed for the rest of my life? And, yes, I'm in pain. I'm in pain all the time and it's really bad, but I can still do something with my life. And so that's what I started doing. Started here in Columbus, Ohio. And then I eventually moved to Rome, Italy, kind of on a whim. It wasn't really thought out, but I was there meeting with some, designers and fabric producers. And so I ended up staying and living in Rome for about 3 years. My mom was able to take care of all the shipments for me here on, in the US. And then I was able to ship orders out of Europe and run the company, from my computer. So that's what I did for about 2.5 years. And then while I was living in Rome is when I started having a lot of really chronic, and I'll just say weird symptoms, like just recurring infections. I would be hospitalized just for no reason with severe stomach pain, but they wouldn't find anything wrong with me. They would say, oh, but we ran all these tests on you. You look fine. And I'm like, yeah, but I was so sick. I had to come into the emergency room because of, severe stomach pain. Right. And they had no clue what was wrong with me. And then I, like I said, would just get these weird infections, skin issues all of a sudden. And it just felt like everything was kind of falling apart. Not just with my chronic pain, which was an ongoing, battle. It, went through periods where it was up and down, a little bit better and then, bad again and all that. But these new, chronic, more internal symptoms were just very strange. And I had no clue what was going on. So unfortunately, it was, I think, early 2020, I had to close Willow Lane and just focus on my healing. Of course, I hadn't discovered anything about integrative health at that point. And so I was just kind of, going from doctor to doctor, the best of conventional medicine. I came back to the States to see some doctors. And while I was in Italy, I ended up meeting the man that's now my husband. So I got married during that time frame as well. And so we actually got stuck in the States when we came back to see some specialists because the borders closed due to COVID. So anyway, we got stuck living with my parents while we had our apartment with all of our stuff back in Italy. We had packed a carry-on, I think. So yeah, we lived with my parents for about a year during the pandemic. And during that time, again, I continued to see doctors and specialists, and nothing was helping. I think I had 2 different colonoscopies done, and they found nothing. I think they told me I had IBS, irritable bowel syndrome. And I'm like, well, why am I coming to the doctor for them to tell me that I have irritable bowels? Like, I know that, like that's not a surprise. And that doesn't help me at all. And I think, they would give me medications. I was on antibiotics all the time for infections. I was taking basically acid blockers every time I would eat food, because that's what I thought you were supposed to do if you had stomach pain. And now looking back, I see how those things, contributed to why I wasn't getting better, of course. But during that time of, living at home during the pandemic, I think it was January 2021 when I was like, okay, enough's enough. Or maybe it was a little bit before that, like end of 2020. And I just decided I'm going to figure out how to heal myself. Obviously, these doctors aren't helping me. Like, no, I can't find help, anywhere. So I'm just going to do it myself. And that's when I discovered IHP. Most people probably would first work with a health coach or, that sort of thing. But I just jumped right into the IHP curriculum because I found it. And I was like, okay, maybe this will give me some answers. I'm just going to do it. So, when I started IHP, I had no intentions of becoming a health coach. I just wanted to figure out how to get better myself. So I started doing level 1. And at the same time, I had also, I would say, end of the summer 2020, beginning of the fall, I also started grad school online. I was still having chronic pain with my back, but it had become more manageable. I started this new type of kind of neurological retraining therapy where they work on your basically firing the correct muscles and that your brain activates the right muscles so you're not compensating. And I won't really focus on that, but that also helped my back a ton. So thankfully, I was able to get to the point where I could sit long enough to, study and, write papers and go back to grad school. But thankfully it was online, which, gave me a lot more flexibility, with my back situation. So I had started grad school for forensic psychology and I was super excited about that. And a few months later, I started IHP level 1. And I really just zoomed through level 1 because I just ate it up. Like I loved it. I would spend all day watching the lectures and, going through my notes and listening to the podcasts and all that. And so I realized about halfway through level 1 that I needed to start doing some of this stuff in my own life. So, I started making dietary changes, following the de-stress protocol. I ordered lab testing. I ran the Big 5. I started every day with a smoothie with the DNS powder. So that's when I really started seeing some big shifts. It wasn't anything huge, but I started moving in the right direction. Mm-hmm. And then when my labs came back and I was like, wow, this makes so much sense. I worked with an EquiLife health coach at that point, and I think that was really a game changer when it came to my health because, starting protocols like the 21-day detox and the CBO, those were really what got me, most of my progress, really. Mm-hmm. So once I realized that, I was like, okay, I'm going to drop out of grad school and sign up for level 2 and just go all in on this, because if this is giving me hope and actually I'm seeing results, I want to make this my life's mission to, bring that same hope and healing to others. And that's what I need to do. It was almost like an ethical thing. Like if you find something that changes your life, how can you not, make it your mission to share it with everyone? Yes. So at that point, I just went all in and I signed up for level 2 and mastery. And then by July of 2021, I was working with clients. And that's pretty much my story of how I got to where I am now.
Wow. Yeah. And so inspiring that you were already enrolled in grad school and this kind of IHP moved you so much that you said like, this is, more important. And I think, this is such a common theme in so many of these interviews. And, we talked about it at the beginning. because you remember how desperate, depressed, down, unheard, just all of the ways that all of us can kind of feel certain diagnoses that aren't actually supported in conventional medicine. And when you find something that works, you're like, wow, but there's other people that feel like me. And so how do you not then make it your mission, right? To go ahead and spread the word and help other people. So that's Absolutely. Such an inspiring story.
And I think even more than myself and my own story. And, I would say, and this is, keep in mind, I've only been doing these protocols and stuff for just over a year. Like, a year ago was really when I was starting my own healing journey. And if I can have, I would say I'm about, at least 70% better now than I was last year. And, I dealt with this for years, chronic symptoms, not, feeling subpar, I guess. And I didn't even realize I had those symptoms at the time because, you're taught that, oh yeah, getting bloated after you eat's normal, or, being constipated is normal, or, having symptoms before your period, that's normal. All these things that I just thought were just part of life. Just suck it up and deal with it. Now I realize, wow, how great life can actually be and how good you can actually feel. Even if you're not at 100%, just how far I've come in a year it gives me so much hope for, not just myself, but for others too. And even with my back, that's made progress. And I know that there's a huge correlation between, our mindset, our emotions. And I've been diving a lot more into the connection between our emotions and chronic pain. And of course, I'm also in therapy for my back. And also my back has gotten so much better over the past year. Like as my more physical internal health symptoms, chronic symptoms have improved, my back improved along with it. And that continues to amaze me how, intertwined they all are. Right. And yeah, it's just been a really, really great journey.
Yes. Yeah. And it's just, reminds us of how everything really is one unit. We're not just our mind or just our gut or just our, hormone system. Everything literally fires together and it's all intertwined. So would you share with our listeners it sounds like obviously there's been lots of health obstacles, prior to this, certainly that have, been things for you to overcome. And you've kind of shared that with us. What do you find to be the biggest obstacle now that you're actually working with clients and helping people? What tends to be your biggest obstacle at this point?
Well, I think as a newer practitioner, as in, someone that's been practicing just about 6 months or so, like actually seeing clients, I think you obviously feel a little bit of that imposter syndrome, when you start working with people like, wow, who am I to be helping this person with their health? Like, am I qualified enough? You can know all the information in the world and you still doubt yourself. Who am I that they're trusting me with their health? And that's such a huge responsibility and honor, one that I don't take for granted. And I think that it can also be a little unnerving to start charging for your services and, requesting a fair price, because when you're really passionate about something and you genuinely want to help people, it's so hard for me not just to give all my services away for free. I think that that's one of the hardest things that I've had to work on is understanding my worth. Mm-hmm. Because I would love to just be able to help everyone for free. But at the same time, I dropped out of grad school, turned down other job opportunities to pursue this path. And so feeling worthy that I am worthy of making, a living wage based on, what I'm doing with my health coaching services, I think that that's been kind of hard for me, at least getting started.
Yes. Yeah. Let's kind of tease the two apart because I think they're both, super helpful to touch upon separately. So the imposter syndrome, right? This is something that we've talked about several times on this show. And I think it's always worth, reiterating how I remember when I first started health coaching a long time ago, almost 12 years now. I felt the same way. And I was like, I know this stuff, but I'm not sure that I am actually fit to be this person's expert. And, I don't feel like I'm an expert. And Dr. Cabral used to always say to me, what you have to remember is that in this scenario, you two are the only one in the room. There's the client and there's you. You are the expert. You know far more than they're able to understand because you've studied this and they haven't. And you can still help them regardless of what there is still for you to know, right? Or sometimes I think too, if you're still working on your own health and you're only 70% there and you want to get 30%, more there, sometimes we can feel like we're still a work in progress. What makes me the expert to now be telling this person what to be doing? But we're still the expert. We still know enough and we still know more than the client who really needs our help. And I think it might be kind of the type of person that health coaching attracts, right? We tend to be compassionate people and we tend to be connectors, and we just, that we can kind of have that self-doubt of maybe this person deserves better. It's not even that we deserve, it's like, does this person deserve a practitioner who knows more? You know enough. We know enough in this space that you can help somebody 100%. Do you know everything you want to know yet? No. But you know enough, that's for sure.
Yeah. Oh, I love that.
You know enough to already have healed yourself 70% of the way. And I think that's something that's for people who have done it for themselves. I mean, you went from a bunch of, doctors telling you they had no idea and you were just kind of doomed and you were going to live in pain. And in your 20s, you took matters into your own hands. Of course, you're fit to help somebody else. But go ahead. I think I cut you off. What were you going to say?
Thank you. Thank you for that reminder. That's encouraging.
Yes.
But yeah, I think we're so hard on ourselves, even when we are in the midst of our own healing journey. Even if we are 70% better, we beat ourselves up about that remaining 30%. And we think, okay, I have to achieve that final 30% and get to 100 before I'm qualified to start working with people. Even if you have the certifications, we still tell ourselves that. And I think that that's also one of the things that, subconsciously, even that I'm hard on myself about. But I will say that the clients I've worked with so far, I have an 100% success rate with my clients, which it blows my mind, really. I mean, I've been working, with clients for several months, and all of them have had all their symptoms completely resolved, or at least, 80 to 90%, pretty much, total resolution. Cause I asked them, well, do you have any remaining symptoms? And they're like, no, I feel better than I've ever felt in my whole life. And I'm like, whoa, my clients almost have better results than me. And I think that it's encouraging, but also it's like, wow, this really does work. And I can help people. And, I think that has helped my confidence, getting them the results. But for any health coaches out there listening, even if you haven't worked with clients yet and haven't gotten them the results, I just really, encourage you to start working with people, because even if, you're not done with maybe all the certifications you want to have, and you might not be where you want to be in your healing journey, you still have, like you were saying, Julia, you have so much value that you can, share with people and really start changing their lives. I mean, it might take them less time to change their lives than you, because, everyone has, some people might have dealt with chronic symptoms for way longer and, have deeper rooted dysfunction,
Yeah.
So I think it's a combo of being patient with yourself while also recognizing your worth and saying, okay, I can really dive in and start helping people.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And I think it also is helpful to the client to kind of humanize the experience and, for clients to know that it's something that you've been through. And there's, in my opinion, the one thing that sells is passion, right? When somebody knows that you are incredibly passionate about what you're doing and you truly are doing what you're doing to serve and help them, I mean, there's no greater trust, in my opinion, that kind of forms in that sense. And so that's what you offer by kind of being human yourself and being on your own journey. The truth is who's ever 100% there anyways, right? Our life is just one big journey, and, things come up, you get a virus and that might knock you down and your hair starts falling out. So then you learn everything you need to know about hair falling out. And then something else, we're not these static beings just because we're health coaches. And once we're better, we're better. And we just kind of stand upright. We know that things can kind of, take a dip and kind of following that wave and just letting your clients kind of know that that's part of your journey too, I think can be incredibly inspiring for them.
Yeah. And I also notice even now with myself, with, the remaining symptoms I do have a tendency to start overthinking things because of what I know. So it's like, I might have the symptoms that the average person in the population wouldn't even consider an issue. Right. But yeah, I start overthinking about it and like, okay, I still have all this to do in my healing journey and I'm not quite there yet. But if you step back and you're like, whoa, let me just wait and, reflect on where I was a year ago or 2 years ago or 3 years ago. And then it hits you and you're like, wow, like it just how much your life has changed.
Yes. Yeah. I always say you can focus on how far you have to go, but it's really important to stop and look at how far you've come in certain instances. Yeah. Absolutely. Let's touch upon the second thing that you brought up, because I think that this can be a huge mental, block for some people. And it can kind of tie into the one that we just talked about, but, kind of feeling like charging for your services is something, that's hard to kind of grapple with, or, you're not sure, should you, I would rather help you and work for free than not help you at all. What do you feel like you've identified as kind of the biggest roadblock there? Have you done a little digging into that?
For me, yeah, I guess I come from a background, in academia where, everything is about your title, right? And so, since I am, I have this certification as a health coach, but it's not necessarily a master's or a doctorate, or, I'm not an MD, right? And so I think that a lot of insecurity creeps in around that. Like, wow, this is what some doctors are charging per hour. This is what some, people with PhD.
The doctors that couldn't help you.
Right. And then that's exactly what I remind myself is like, well, people are paying, for results. Like they're paying to change their health, to change their life, for, the hope. And I think that knowing how most conventional doctors, and I don't want to like hate on conventional doctors, my dad's a doctor, but I think that it's important to note that for a lot of chronic conditions, doctors just don't get you there. They don't get the results. And it's, well, I won't go into that, but it's not necessarily their fault or anything. It's, largely just the way that they were taught. But I'm like, okay, even though I don't have a, degree in this or anything, I still am worthy of charging, a fair price for my services because I have gotten these results for people. It has changed people's lives. And even going back, to the clients that I've been able to help, if I read their intake, like the notes from the intake session and all the symptoms they listed, and then, a few months later, I read that back to them and they're like, whoa, I forgot I even had that. Like, I forgot I even used to have headaches every day. You know what I mean? So I think that's helped.
Yes. Yeah. And we never hate on conventional medicine. It's one of those things where like doctors are amazing in emergency care. The training, just as you said, it's no fault of their own, but root cause investigation has never been part of conventional medicine training. So if it's not something you're trained in, how are you going to know how to understand it or implement it? But it's really where the kind of mystery things get solved. And, I think understanding that you are offering something completely different, but more valuable, if anything else, to people who are kind of struggling for answers, right? And I had somebody on a call say to me, do you mind me asking, are you a doctor? And I immediately got like super insecure. I'm like, oh my gosh. And this was just recently. I've been doing this for a long time. And I immediately was like, no, I'm not. I'm just a health coach. I recommend you like definitely deferring this stuff to your doctor. I kind of thought that she was saying it as in like, who are you to be telling me any of this if you're not a doctor? And she said, oh no, I'm not asking you because of that. She said, I've never seen a medical professional that knows as much as you. And I think that's what we need to keep in mind is that while we can think of this, right? It might cross your mind. You're just a health coach. We're not just health coaches. That's the title that we've probably had to put ourselves in a box of, but we are far more than just quote unquote, just that, right? We are extremely educated, thanks to Dr. Cabral, in areas that lots of professionals aren't even slightly educated in, and we're able to educate clients and help them in a way that lots of professions can't.
Yeah. And I love that you just brought that up, the phrase, oh, I'm just a health coach, because that thought definitely crossed my mind several times, because I know that, especially with social media, there are so many other, health and fitness coaches out there that might kind of give the title a bad rap, And I think that that's why we have that connotation with that, like, oh, just a health coach or whatever, because they, some of them are kind of a dime a dozen. There are different certification programs out there that just aren't as good, and so that's why I think also using the term integrative health practitioner, does set us apart a little bit because of the training that we have. I mean, I don't know any other type of health coach that can really, interpret and, give an educational interpretation of functional medicine labs. And that was a huge part of, our education. Right. So
yes.
I think that reminding myself of that, and also, even if other people don't like your prices, or they don't, believe in you or agree with what you do, even family members, I think, and Mastery also helped me with this, but just staying strong in what I know has changed my life, and what I know has worked for my clients and has changed their lives,
Yeah.
And I think that just kind of learning, I know this sounds cliche, but just learning not really to care what others think, because it doesn't matter what they think. It's the results, right? The results speak for themselves.
Yes. Yeah. One of my mentors used to always say, it's none of your business what anybody else thinks. And
said than done.
What, say that again?
That's easier said than done.
Yeah, exactly. But she would always say to me, just, it's none of your business. Like, we're not talking about it. We're not, yes, like, there's people that are but everybody's going to have something to say, or something to kind of think. And quite frankly, if you make it your business, you're allowing it to define you. You're allowing it to hold you back. And it's so much easier said than done. But I think something so worthwhile. And Mastery does touch upon, lots of these kind of, limiting beliefs and those kinds of things that I think probably a lot of integrative health practitioners have struggled with, perhaps at some point. So I'm glad you brought that up, Mastery.
Yeah. And I also like to focus on just planting the seed with people, because I think back when I was, my senior year of college, I was interning at a place called the Mindfulness Center, and they did a lot of, different integrative health services. I was into yoga at that point. And I remember one of my mentors there telling me, she was like, because this is when I started having all the back pain. And she was trying to tell me about the connection between trauma and back pain and, encouraging me to get more into mindfulness. And I shut all of it down. I was like, no, that's crazy. I'm just going to listen to my doctor and take my pain pills. And it almost irritated me. Like, how dare she say that I try these things because I have a real condition. Like, I have real chronic pain. It's not this woo-woo solution is not going to work for me.
It's not all in your head. When someone
and I'm like, no, it's, and it's offensive to some people if you suggest that it's all in their head. And of course, physical symptoms are never just all in your head, but so much of our mindset and, trauma and emotions can really impact the expression of symptoms, of course. And, so I remember how I used to view integrative health and, these different techniques that now I use with my clients. And I realized, like, she was planting the seed. And I actually recently emailed her and caught up with her and, thanked her for being patient with me, because I realized, like, wow, she was very instrumental for me at that time in my life, even though I wouldn't realize it until years later.
Yeah.
So even if you're just planting the seed with people,
Yes. I was going to say, so important to keep in mind with clients or even, friends or family who approach you. Some people are in the place where they're ready to hear what will help and some aren't. And so just planting a seed or, planting a bush or maybe like digging a hole and planting a tree. I mean, everybody's ready for a different level, and being able to kind of understand and meet people where they're at is super important too.
Oh, absolutely. And I think also Mastery helped me with that, communication skills and learning to kind of gauge where your clients are at and what they're ready for. Because, I'm to the point where and this isn't necessarily a good thing, but I can kind of freak out about ice cubes at a restaurant. Oh my gosh, well, what's in the ice cube? Like, like little things like that, or chewing a piece of gum because I know the gross stuff that's in it. And, I know a little too much about food probably. So I start to, spiral and like have all these thoughts. And I'm like, if I tried to bring up like, don't have, ice cubes that haven't been made with filtered water at a restaurant to my clients, I mean, I would lose most of them, like mentally, like they'd be like, what? Like, you're crazy. Wow. So I think just gauging like what they're ready for and what they're not, that's also huge.
Yes.
Yeah.
And usually I find that like, if you take 2 steps forward, like then they're ready for 2 more steps. And then those 4 steps lead you to 4 more. And before you know it, like you've kind of gotten the whole staircase covered. But if you try to just sprint them to the top, it can be overwhelming and too much.
Yeah, totally.
Where can listeners kind of find you on social media or website if they wanted to kind of learn more or connect with you? Where are the places they could do that?
Yeah. So the name of my integrative health practice is called Root Cause Integrative Health. And the website for that is rootcauseintegrativehealth.com. And then my Instagram, it's, I do post a lot of health related content on there, but it's under my name. So the handle is AJ Puccioni.
Yeah, perfect. We'll link it up.
Or is that going to be in the show notes?
Yeah, we'll put it in the show notes.
Okay, great.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you so much, Abigail, for being a guest on the Integrative Health Coach Success Podcast. This is such a helpful conversation, I think, for our listeners. And we touched upon a lot of, I think, common pain points in the industry. And I'm so grateful for you being here.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.